After being reborn, I took revenge on all my enemies in one night. It was only after my death that I learned my husband had an affair with my widowed sister-in-law and fathered a child with her. He secretly fed me infertility drugs, and using my inability to conceive as an excuse, made me adopt his illegitimate child with my sister-in-law. Unaware of the truth, I raised the child, served my husband, and honored my mother-in-law, but never received any appreciation and died a miserable death in the ancestral hall. Hello everyone, welcome to Empress Revenge Stories. Let's begin this story. I devoted my entire life to the Lin family, yet I was never recognized. I was confined to the ancestral hall for 5 years before dying of poison. It was only after my death that I learned my husband had an affair with my widowed sister-in-law and fathered a child with her. He secretly fed me infertility drugs, and using my inability to conceive as an excuse, made me adopt his illegitimate child with my sister-in-law. Unaware of the truth, I raised the child, served my husband, and honored my mother-in-law, but never received any appreciation and died a miserable death in the ancestral hall. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the time when my husband was pressuring me to adopt his illegitimate child. Young Lin Jiaxian stood before me with a frown. Lu Shuang, you haven't conceived in 3 years. I haven't taken any concubines for your sake. Now you're unwilling even to adopt a child. I bit my lip. My lord, I am still young. There's still a chance. Lin Jiaxian's expression darkened. Lu Shuang, if you won't adopt an orphan child, then I'll have to take 10 or 8 concubines to carry on the family line. If I end up with a bunch of illegitimate children and you still can't produce one, would that make you happy? His words were earnest, filled with veiled threats and cajoling, every sentence seemingly for my sake. I had heard those words many years ago and remembered them clearly because they had cut so deep. In a daze, I realized I had been reborn. Lu Shuang, what do you think? Lin Jiaxian's words snapped me back to reality. In my past life, after Lin Jiaxian, my mother-in-law, and my sister-in-law had persuaded me back and forth, I finally relented. All right, I'll adopt the child. That one sentence allowed that illegitimate, shameful child to enter the Lin family, registered under my name. After becoming the legitimate son of the Lin family, with my and my family's support, he rose meteorically, became a court official, and successfully inherited the marquisate. But that little beast then turned around and ruined my reputation, conspired with that adulterous couple to frame me, locked me in the ancestral hall, and poisoned me to death. Just as I was about to agree to the adoption, I suddenly came to my senses. The words had almost left my mouth, but I changed them at the last moment. My lord, this is a grave matter. There's no need to rush. Could you stay for dinner tonight? Lin Jiaxian seemed not to have expected me to be so unyielding. He was very irritated. No, I have official business to attend to. I curved my lips. Since you won't even stay for dinner, then let's forget about the adoption. Lin Jiaxian frowned for a moment, then gritted his teeth. Fine, I'll stay for dinner. His expression was that of someone bestowing a great favor. I sneered inwardly. Today was March 14th, the birthday of my kind, gentle, virtuous, and proper, widowed sister-in-law, Wen Fei. Wen Fei had spent the day urging Lin Jiaxian to pressure me into adopting the child, and had planned to have dinner with him that evening for her birthday. Now, not only had the adoption plan failed, but Lin Jiaxian was also staying with me. I wondered what that woman's expression would be. How wonderful that my lord is staying. I'll personally cook a few dishes. I feigned delight as I rose to go to the kitchen, making sure to spread the news that Lin Jiaxian was staying. Wen Fei would surely act. When I reached the small kitchen, I immediately saw my personal maid Hongling simmering bird's nest soup. Seeing me, she quickly bowed. Madam, I smiled. His lordship is staying for dinner today. Prepare another serving of bird's nest soup. Yes, madam. Hongling went off to prepare the bird's nest. I lifted the lid on the small stove, my eyes cold. After I married into the Lin family, Lin Jiaxian had someone prepare a bowl of bird's nest soup for me every day. I thought he cared for me, but I didn't know that he had bribed Hongling to add a cold-natured, fertility-destroying drug into it, which could make a woman sterile with long-term use. My mother had been frail and ill, and I had learned some medical knowledge from the physicians she consulted, so they didn't dare use a strong dose, for fear I would detect it. The drug was colorless and tasteless. Its effects mild, and it didn't cause any physical discomfort. That was why I had never discovered it. Over the course of 3 years, this was why I had never conceived. Ha! Truly despicable. I memorized the appearance of the bird's nest soup, then called for my senior maid, Jean Ju, and announced, "His lordship is staying for dinner tonight, and I'm going to personally buy the ingredients and cook." With that, I happily left the manor with Jean Ju. In my past life, Jean Ju had been the most loyal maid, but she had been killed. Once outside the manor, I sent Jean Ju to buy a packet of Baiji powder from the pharmacy. Jean Ju didn't know why, but she obeyed and went. I sat on the second floor of a tea house, drinking tea and enjoying the rare sight of the bustling city. After I died, my soul had drifted, and I learned that Lin Jiaxian had been giving me that cold-natured drug. Adding Baiji to it would drastically increase its toxicity. If not treated in time, it could cause death in severe cases, or at the very least, sterility. Dear husband, just wait. After obtaining the Baiji powder, I bought a few random things and returned to the Marquis' manor. I had the kitchen prepare the dishes, and when Hong Ling was away, I poured the Baiji powder into the drugged bird's nest soup. When the dishes were ready, I had them brought to the table. As expected, Lin Jiaxian was waiting in the main hall, hoping to pressure me into the adoption. "My lord, dinner is ready," I said. As night fell, Lin Jiaxian and I sat facing each other. He looked anxious, repeatedly glancing out the window. It was Wenfei's birthday, and he had promised to have dinner with her, but I had kept him here, causing his agitation. Hong Ling brought in 2 bowls of bird's nest soup, placing one before me and one before Lin Jiaxian. I knew immediately that the one before me was the poisoned one. Hong Ling, that treacherous servant. Just wait and see how I deal with her. When all the dishes were on the table, I dismissed the maids, leaving only Lin Jiaxian and me. I said, "I thought I saw a figure in blue standing at the courtyard gate. I might be mistaken." In the evening, after I had made a big show of Lin Jiaxian staying, Wenfei, resentful on her birthday, had come to my courtyard gate. She lingered for a while before leaving her senior maid to watch outside. Lin Jiaxian immediately stood up. "I'll go check." When he had first been involved with Wenfei, she had worn blue. As soon as he left, I swapped the bird's nest soups. After a moment, Lin Jiaxian returned, even more restless. "My lord, please drink the bird's nest soup," I urged softly. Suspecting nothing, he drank it, ate a few bites of the dishes, and then, as if checking off a task, said, "Lu Shuang, I'm finished eating. I should go now. Farewell, my lord." I chuckled softly, eating my dishes slowly, and sent Jean Ju to follow Lin Jiaxian at a distance to see if he went to Wenfei's quarters. Shortly, Jean Ju returned to report, "Madam, just as you predicted, his lordship went to Hefeng Yuan." I nodded. The show was about to begin. The Yongding Marquis Manor had 2 legitimate sons, Lin Jiaxian and his older brother, Lin Jiayu. Wenfei had been skillful at playing both of them, keeping them on a string. When Lin Jiaxian's older brother was named heir, she tearfully broke things off with Lin Jiaxian and married into the Lin family as his sister-in-law. But just 3 months after the wedding, Lin Jiaxian's brother was killed by bandits while traveling on official business, leaving no remains. After his death, the title of heir naturally passed to Lin Jiaxian, and Wenfei was left a widow, clutching her husband's memorial tablet. But how could she be content with that for life? So she seduced her younger brother-in-law, Lin Jiaxian. Once again, Lin Jiaxian had long been deeply in love with Wenfei. As soon as she gave him a hint, he eagerly threw himself at her. They began an affair, and soon Wenfei was pregnant. When they could no longer hide it, they knelt before their mother-in-law, confessing the truth through tears. Although furious, their mother-in-law had no choice, as the child in Wenfei's womb was still a Lin heir. So she made an excuse of retreating for prayer and blessings, and took Wenfei to Nanshan Temple to have the child. The child's origins were shameful. If exposed, Wenfei would be doomed, and Lin Jiaxian's career would likely be ruined. So the child could not be brought back to the manor. After Wenfei gave birth, they entrusted the child to someone else to raise, waiting for an opportunity to bring him back. That opportunity came when my mother-in-law returned to the capital and began looking for suitable wives for Lin Jiaxian. They needed a woman and her family who were easy to control, Yet who could still match the marquise status? After much deliberation, they chose me, Su Lu Shuang. I was beautiful, talented, from a respectable family, and my father was only a minor official. My ancestors had produced a great scholar, and my family associated with upright, cultured people. If I married into the family, their child could become the student of a great scholar. There was no better candidate to be the matriarch. My parents considered the match an honor and happily agreed, and so I was married off blindly, unaware that I was walking into a fiery pit. The Lin family had already planned to drug me so I couldn't have children. After some time, they would use my infertility as an excuse to bring the illegitimate child back and have me raise him as my own. That way, the three of them could be reunited. After dinner, I waited quietly. In the middle of the night, there was suddenly a commotion in the courtyard. I immediately rushed out of my courtyard and asked, "What's happening?" The noise was coming from Wenfei's courtyard. A matron I had stationed outside reported, "Madam, it seems that the first madam has taken ill, and they've urgently called for a physician." I sneered inwardly. Lin Jiaxian must be suffering from the poison, his condition deteriorating rapidly. The servants had raised the alarm and summoned a doctor. He was definitely at Wenfei's place. I feigned concern. "Then we must go see sister-in-law at once. She has been a widow for many years, observing all the rules of propriety. Now that she is ill, we cannot be remiss." With that, I led a large group of maids and matrons to Wenfei's courtyard. I was going to personally barge in and catch the adulterers in the act. Wenfei's courtyard was brightly lit. As I walked in, the maids and matrons in the courtyard, looking flustered, tried to stop me. "Second madam, you've heard that the first madam is ill. Might we ask you to return? I've come all this way. I should at least look in on her." With that, I had the matrons clear the way and directly entered Wenfei's room. In the room, the pitiful, pathetic widow Wenfei lay on the bed, her face pale. "Second sister-in-law," she said weakly. "Sister-in-law, I heard you are seriously ill. Lu Shuang has come to visit," I said, pretending to be solicitous. As I spoke, I looked around. Strangely, I saw no sign of Lin Jiaxian. I was certain he had been poisoned and had come to Wenfei's courtyard. He was probably hiding in the room. Since that was the case, I wasn't leaving. I smiled slightly and sat on the edge of Wenfei's bed. "Sister-in-law, you've worked so hard managing the Marquis household all these years. Tonight, Lu Shuang will keep you company." Wenfei's expression stiffened. "Second sister-in-law, don't be so kind. It's just a minor cold. I'll be fine. You should go back." I shook my head. "We are sisters-in-law. It's only right that I keep you company." "Have you sent for the physician yet?" "Yes. He's already prescribed some medicine." I chatted with Wenfei. She grew flustered and asked me to leave several times. But I stubbornly refused to go. If I didn't leave, Lin Jiaxian couldn't either. Unless he wanted to be caught in the act. If he didn't come out, he wouldn't get the antidote in time, and he would be ruined. Soon, the physician entered with a bowl of medicine. "My lord, drink this medicine." Seeing me, the physician's expression changed drastically. "Marquis' wife." "My lord." I looked puzzled. "His lordship is here." "No, he isn't." The physician quickly corrected himself. "I misspoke. I smiled inwardly. I took the bowl from him and brought it to Wenfei's lips. "Sister-in-law, drink your medicine." Wenfei's composure was already cracking. She forced herself to say, "Second sister-in-law, the medicine is a bit hot. I'll drink it later. You should go back first." She didn't dare drink it. Of course, because this was Lin Jiaxian's antidote. If she drank it, Lin Jiaxian wouldn't get it in time. "Sister-in-law, let me cool it for you." I picked up the bowl and stirred it with a spoon. After a moment, I gently brought it back to her lips. "Sister-in-law, it's cool now. Drink it." Wenfei's face turned red. She forced herself to take a sip. She was a clever one. She immediately started coughing. "This medicine is terrible. I can't drink it." "You won't drink it." I sneered inwardly. "Sister-in-law, good medicine tastes bitter. How can you get better if you don't drink it?" Wenfei, growing desperate, said, "This medicine doesn't seem like it's for a cold." "What?" I immediately stood up and smashed the bowl on the floor, pointing at the physician and shouting, "This is an outrage." Wenfei screamed, "Why did you smash the medicine?" Everyone was stunned. I took Wenfei's hands. my voice filled with righteous indignation. Sister-in-law, don't be afraid. This physician was trying to poison you. Fortunately, you were clever enough to see through his scheme. Guards, maids and matrons rushed into the room. I pointed at the physician. Lock this quack doctor in the woodshed. We'll deal with him later. Wu Momo, this servant is here. Take my pass and go to Huichen Pharmacy immediately. Invite a physician to treat sister-in-law. Invite several, so that she can't be harmed by another quack. Yes. With a series of crisp, decisive commands, I set everyone in motion. The physician, terrified, knelt and shouted, "Injustice! Marquis's wife! I never tried to poison the first madam. I didn't. Sister-in-law vomited as soon as she took your medicine, and she said it wasn't for a cold. How dare you lie to my face? Guards, drag him out and give him 20 strokes first." Without further ado, I ordered 2 matrons to drag the physician out and beat him. Listening to the screams from the courtyard, I slowly smiled. The physician was the Marquis's trusted man, answerable only to my mother-in-law and Lin Jiaxian. In my past life, the infertility drug had been sourced by this same physician. Every month, he would secretly give the poison to Hongling, who would add it to my bird's nest soup. Later, when Lin Jiaxian and the others wanted me dead, this physician also poisoned me under the guise of treating my illness, leading to my miserable death. This heartless, evil creature was now in my hands, and I would not let him off. Second sister-in-law, that's not what I meant. Just let the physician go and have him make another bowl of medicine. Wen Fei was so anxious she was nearly in tears, looking utterly pitiful. This act worked well on men, but not on me. I pretended not to understand. Sister-in-law, you were the one who said that the medicine wasn't for a cold, and you vomited as soon as you drank it. Clearly, something was wrong. Why would you want him to make more? Wen Fei stammered, unable to answer, her eyes involuntarily darting to the wardrobe on the side of the bed. Oh, so the bastard Lin Jiaxian was hiding in the wardrobe. The physician's screams gradually faded as he was dragged into the woodshed. I took Wen Fei's hand. Sister-in-law, don't worry. The physicians will be here soon. Wen Fei had no choice. To be safe, I also had Jin Ju wrap up the leftover dregs of the physician's medicine, not letting anyone touch them. Just then, there was another sound of hurried footsteps in the courtyard. Shortly after, my mother-in-law rushed into the room. Wen Fei immediately said, "Madam." Her eyes were a mixture of shock and delight. My mother-in-law scowled. "What's all this commotion in the middle of the night?" I stepped forward. "Madam, sister-in-law fell ill, and the physician tried to poison her. Is that so?" My mother-in-law was shocked. I nodded. Wen Fei said weakly, "Madam, I would like to speak with you alone." My mother-in-law immediately said to me, "Lu Shuang, leave. Wen Fei and I have something to discuss." So, she was trying to get rid of me. Very well, I would do as she wished. I stood up and left the room, but I had several strong matrons guard the courtyard and patrol the area. It was obvious they wanted to get rid of me so Lin Jiaxian could escape. "Ha!" I whispered a few words into Jin Ju's ear. Jin Ju announced loudly in the courtyard. "I just saw a strange figure in the courtyard. There must be a thief. Everyone, if you see a stranger, beat them to death." A moment later, Jin Ju came to me and said quietly, "Madam, someone just tried to open the back window, but they saw us watching and closed it again." I nodded with satisfaction. With people watching, Lin Jiaxian couldn't escape. He could only cower. Just then, the door opened, and my mother-in-law stormed out, angrily reprimanding me. "Lu Shuang, what do you think you're doing? Showing off in your widowed sister-in-law's courtyard? What will people think? Take your people and leave." I shook my head. "Madam, tonight's events are far from ordinary. Sister-in-law was suddenly taken ill, and the physician tried to poison her. We cannot let our guard down." My mother-in-law was furious. "Who said he poisoned her? Release the physician at once." Sister-in-law said so herself. Just then, Wen Fei, supported by a maid, came to the door. My mother-in-law slapped her across the face. "Did you say that?" Wen Fei's delicate face immediately showed 5 finger marks. With tears in her eyes, she said, "Madam, there's been a misunderstanding. Since second sister-in-law insists on having me treated, I don't want to refuse her kindness. I'll go to Huichen Pharmacy myself." My mother-in-law immediately caught on. Yes, Go to Huichen Pharmacy quickly. Hurry. Then she said to me, Lu Shuang, since you want to care for your sister-in-law, you can go with her. I narrowed my eyes. No wonder I had died such a miserable death in my past life. First, they colluded and deceived me, forming an alliance against me alone. Second, Wen Fei was no pushover. She had hidden Lin Jiaxian the moment I arrived, feigned illness to deceive me, and now, under my relentless pressure, came up with a plan to escape. Truly formidable. I had stayed on the pretext of caring for my sister-in-law. Now that Wen Fei wanted to leave, I naturally had to follow. Once I left, my people would have to withdraw, and Lin Jiaxian, who was still inside, could escape safely. Jin Ju said, First madam, the physician from Huichen Pharmacy is on his way. If you leave now, you might miss them on the road, and they'll have made the trip for nothing. I smiled. Sister-in-law, you look so weak. Why don't you stay? I've already sent for a carriage. They should be here soon. Seeing that I was determined not to leave, Wen Fei and my mother-in-law's faces turned bright red. My mother-in-law began to berate me again. I looked puzzled. Madam, what has Lu Shuang done wrong? Everything I've done tonight has been based on reason and evidence. No one can find fault with my actions. I wiped my eyes. If caring for my sister-in-law and apprehending a servant who tried to poison her are wrong, then I don't know what is right. You. My mother-in-law was speechless, pointing at me in frustration. Wen Fei reminded her, Madam, you are the head of this household. Who can disobey your orders? My mother-in-law immediately came to her senses. Su Lu Shuang, take your people and leave immediately. Why? There's no why. I am the head of this household. Do I need to explain myself to a daughter-in-law? She raised her chin angrily. Are you going to defy your mother-in-law? Since she couldn't win with reason, she resorted to brute force. I had to admit, it was quite effective. I smiled. Madam, you are right. I will leave immediately. However, since a servant tried to poison sister-in-law, there must be someone behind it. So, for sister-in-law's safety, I will send someone to report this to the authorities. Once the officers arrive, I will naturally withdraw everyone. My mother-in-law and Wen Fei stared, wide-eyed. My mother-in-law was so angry she looked like she might faint. If the officers came, Lin Jiaxian would have no chance of escape. And if they found him hiding in his widowed sister-in-law's room in the middle of the night, the entire capital would know by tomorrow. As we were at an impasse, Wu Momo rushed in, shouting, The physicians are here. The physicians are here. 2 renowned physicians from Huichen Pharmacy had been brought to the Marquis' manor. Sister-in-law, let the physicians examine you. Under the watchful eyes of everyone present, Wen Fei had no choice but to retreat to her room. Wen Fei and my mother-in-law exchanged glances. Their eyes filled with anxiety. I comforted her. Sister-in-law, don't be afraid. With these 2 respected physicians here, you will be fine. Wen Fei almost gritted her teeth as she said, Thank you. Second sister-in-law, you're welcome. It's my duty. The 2 physicians felt Wen Fei's pulse. She coughed occasionally, her face pale. Madam's pulse is steady. There's nothing seriously wrong, the physician said, puzzled. But she has a persistent cough and pale complexion. Wen Fei said, Perhaps I caught a chill. The 2 physicians conferred for a moment. It seems to be a mild cold. Some medicine will take care of it. My mother-in-law practically jumped with impatience. Then prescribe the medicine quickly and leave. The 2 physicians were highly respected in the capital. Even nobles had to watch their attitude. They had agreed to a late-night house call. Yet my mother-in-law treated them so rudely. They were quite displeased. You summoned both of us in such a hurry, thinking it was a serious illness. But it's just a cold. Now you're trying to shoo us away. What is this? A joke? My mother-in-law's face turned purple. I smiled inwardly, then stepped forward and said, Honored physicians, you may not be aware, but the previous physician also said it was a cold. However, when he brought the medicine, sister-in-law drank it and immediately vomited, saying it wasn't for a cold. That's why we were frightened and asked you to come. Is that so? I had Jin Ju bring the leftover dregs and showed them to the physicians. Is this medicine for a cold? The 2 physicians looked at it and immediately changed color. Absolutely not. This contains centipedes and strychnine, highly toxic substances. I immediately rose in anger. So someone was indeed trying to poison sister-in-law. This must be investigated. Wu Momo, Go to the authorities immediately. No. When Fei and my mother-in-law frantically tried to stop me, I continued to urge Wu Momo on. She had already run off. Madam, sister-in-law, we cannot let this go unpunished. We must report this to the authorities. I watched the two of them, their faces red with frustration, and laughed inwardly. The toxic substances in the dregs were meant to counteract the poison in Lin Jiaxian's system, using the principle of fighting poison with poison. But when Fei only had a cold, those ingredients would be poison to her. The two physicians from Huichun Pharmacy were caught between Wen Fei and my mother-in-law. At a loss, they were frantic. I glanced at the wardrobe. How long had it been? Lin Jiaxian still hadn't come out. She could really endure. Let's see how long she could last. Soon, a sound came from the wardrobe. What was that noise? I asked. No noise. My mother-in-law and Wen Fei said in unison. Another groan of pain came from the wardrobe. There's someone in the wardrobe. The physician stood up, startled. I immediately ordered Jean Ju, open it and see. Before my mother-in-law's people could stop her, Jean Ju threw open the wardrobe. A figure collapsed to the ground, foam dripping from its mouth. My lord, Jean Ju shouted. Everyone in the room was stunned. Lin Jiaxian had come out of the wardrobe, on the ground, rolling his eyes, foaming at the mouth, unconscious, feigning surprise. I asked, what is going on? Why is his lordship hiding in sister-in-law's wardrobe? Wen Fei's face instantly turned pale, a true, bloodless pallor. I thought for a moment, my expression growing more shocked. Sister-in-law, some people said before that you and his lordship were very close before you were married. I never believed it, but now I understand. It's true. With a single bucket of filthy water poured over Wen Fei's head, though, it wasn't actually filthy water. It was the truth. Wen Fei was dizzy, her body swaying. Weakly, she said, no, it's not what you think. Then what is it? I asked, my voice a mixture of anger and hurt. Since I married into this family, his lordship has rarely visited my courtyard. Today, I finally managed to persuade him to stay for dinner and the night. But first you came to my courtyard gate. Then you sent a maid to hover around. His lordship spoke with your maid and immediately became restless, hardly eating before leaving. I was very upset and couldn't sleep. When I heard you were ill, I came to keep you company, and I find his lordship here with you. You've been carrying on a secret affair. No, that's not true. Wen Fei hurried to my side, taking my hand. Lu Shuang, believe me, things are not as you imagine. I shook off her hand, then explained to me why a man who is not your husband is in your room in the middle of the night. Wen Fei stammered, her face growing redder under the suggestive gazes of everyone present. No matter how she tried to lie, she couldn't explain why Lin Jiaxian was hiding in her wardrobe in the middle of the night. I sneered, you won't admit it. Then let me ask you another question. Tonight is your birthday. His lordship abandoned me to come to your Hufeng Yuan. Why? Everyone in the household knows that his lordship was supposed to stay with me tonight. So why did he end up in your courtyard? Wen Fei's lips trembled. The people around her looked at her with contempt. The situation was obvious. So you've been together all along. This is adultery. Wen Fei, clever as she was, gritted her teeth and said, I didn't know either. The most important thing now is to treat his lordship. We can talk about everything else later. My mother-in-law clutched her chest and sighed. Yes. Let's attend to my son first. The maids and matrons carried Lin Jiaxian to the bed. The physicians from Huichun Pharmacy knelt beside him, examining him for a long moment before saying seriously, his lordship has also been poisoned. I immediately pointed at Wen Fei. You were meeting his lordship in secret in the middle of the night, and you poisoned him. How vicious. It wasn't me. Wen Fei was terrified. The crime of poisoning the air would not only cost her her head but also implicate her family. I don't know how he was poisoned. The authorities had arrived. Wu Momo had moved quickly and brought several officers from the Ministry of Justice. The lead official was the vice director of the Ministry of Justice. Wu Momo had done well, inviting a very important person. Everyone was shocked. I said, since sister-in-law continues to lie, we can have the officers interrogate the maids and matrons in the courtyard. The truth will come out. You attempted to murder his lordship. That is a grave crime. Wen Fei was terrified, her eyes wide with fear. The vice director looked at me, then waved his hand. Since the first madam refuses to speak, we will take the servants for interrogation. If we find anyone has lied, don't blame me for being ruthless. Wen Fei's body swayed, ready to collapse. The crimes of adultery and attempted murder of the heir were both serious. Having been found with the heir hiding in her wardrobe, she couldn't escape the adultery charge. She absolutely could not admit to poisoning him. At least adultery would not implicate her family, and the servants would talk. Once interrogated, the truth would be known. At this point, Wen Fei had no choice but to tell the truth. The vice director said, "First madam, speak." Wen Fei gritted her teeth. "I did not poison his lordship. Tonight is my birthday. His lordship came to have dinner with me. Afterwards, we retired." Suddenly, his lordship had terrible stomach pains and began sweating profusely. I interrupted. "Retired? So you were sleeping together?" I was determined to publicly establish the fact of their adultery. Wen Fei's lips trembled. "Sister-in-law, the vice director is here. Your maids know the truth. Lies are useless." At my words, Wen Fei closed her eyes, bit her lip, and wept. Yes, everyone was stunned. The heir of the Yongding Marquis Manor was committing adultery with his widowed sister-in-law. My mother-in-law collapsed into a chair, rubbing her forehead, muttering, "It's over, it's over." I looked at Wen Fei with disdain, and the others also pointed at her. Wen Fei suddenly panicked. "I was forced." She practically blurted it out. "I didn't want to. His lordship forced me." She was used to playing the innocent, just like in my past life when she had framed me for pushing her into the water, shifting the blame onto me. She was instinctively doing the same thing to Lin Jiaxian. "Wretch!" My mother-in-law panicked, jumping up from her chair and slapping Wen Fei hard across the face. "You wretch! You're the one who seduced my son." If Wen Fei had been forced, then the blame would fall on Lin Jiaxian. My mother-in-law was naturally anxious. Wen Fei cried, "I really was forced, daughter-in-law." She seemed to realize what she had said, but words spoken are like water spilled. She could only insist that Lin Jiaxian had forced her. The close mother-in-law and daughter-in-law suddenly became enemies. I laughed inwardly. I had thought their relationship was so solid. It turned out they would step on each other to save themselves when disaster struck. As my mother-in-law and Wen Fei were about to come to blows, the vice director said, "Enough. First, we need to get the facts about the case." I sat back with satisfaction. Wen Fei tearfully recounted the events, emphasizing that she had been forced to sleep with Lin Jiaxian and knew nothing about the poison. The official asked, "What did his lordship eat today?" Wen Fei, who hated me, immediately pointed at me. "He ate dinner at her place first. She poisoned him. She tried to kill his lordship." I frowned. "Wen Fei, don't make wild accusations. I am his wife. Why would I want to harm my own husband? Because he doesn't love you." Wen Fei glared at me hatefully, trying to pin the crime of poisoning on me. I didn't argue with her. His lordship did eat in my courtyard, but he also ate in Hefeng Yuan. Besides, his lordship went out on business. He might have eaten something then. Why are you putting all the blame on me? Sister-in-law, you're the adulteress. Why do you look at me as if you want to eat my flesh and drink my blood? Wen Fei was shaking with rage. My mother-in-law said coldly, "Wen Fei is a wretch. I've never seen such a despicable woman. I'll have the family divorce her." Wen Fei glared at her, sneering, "Madam, with so many people present, you should consider the bigger picture before you speak." She was reminding her mother-in-law that if she revealed the existence of the child, Wen Fei would become a despised adulteress. But Lin Jiaxian and the Marquis' household would also be ruined. My mother-in-law swallowed her anger and fell silent. Just then, the physicians from Huichun Pharmacy said, "Wait, madam, please let us see the leftover dregs from earlier." I had Jean Ju bring them over. The two physicians examined the dregs closely, smelling them, then exclaimed excitedly, "This is it. This is the antidote." I pretended to be surprised. "What do you mean, madam?" The medicine that the previous physician prepared was likely the antidote for his lordship. If we have to create an antidote ourselves, it will take considerable time. His lordship cannot wait that long. Please have the previous physician confirm it. If it is indeed the antidote, we can prepare it immediately. His lordship is running out of time. I said, "Bring the physician who tried to poison my sister-in-law." "Poison your sister-in-law?" the vice director inquired. I explained, "My lord, Besides his lordship being poisoned, my sister-in-law was nearly poisoned as well. I recounted everything I had seen. Wen Fei's expression was unnatural. The vice director's eyes gleamed. He clearly sensed that something was amiss. Soon, the physician from the woodshed was brought into the room. He was covered in wounds and in great pain. "Madam, save me," he cried. My mother-in-law looked away in panic. "The medicine you prepared tonight, who was it for?" I asked, holding up the dregs. The physician looked around in panic. The vice director shouted, "Speak, or you'll be beaten." The physician trembled, his eyes darting around. I asked, "Did you try to poison my sister-in-law? You dare to poison your master. You'll lose your head." The physician was terrified. "Injustice. I would never dare to poison the first madam. That medicine wasn't for the first madam." "Then who was it for?" I reminded him. "My sister-in-law has already admitted to having an affair with his lordship. You came in with a bowl of medicine. Why?" Wen Fei's face reddened. The physician, wide-eyed, realized that the affair had been exposed and quickly told the truth. It was for his lordship. The two physicians from Huichen Pharmacy asked, "That was the antidote for his lordship?" The physician nodded. "Quickly, prepare another batch." The maids hurried off. The vice director narrowed his eyes at the physician. "So you knew what poison his lordship had and knew the antidote?" The physician was sweating profusely. I immediately said, "So you're the one who poisoned his lordship. You deserve to have your entire family executed." The physician was terrified, kowtowing frantically. "I didn't poison him. I don't know how his lordship was poisoned." The vice director said, "Lying. Even the physicians from Huichen Pharmacy couldn't identify the poison. How could you prepare the antidote so quickly? You must have known what poison he had." The physician was sweating heavily, looking helplessly at my mother-in-law and Wen Fei. "Why are you looking at me?" My mother-in-law shouted. "You don't think I did it, do you?" Wen Fei said, "Could it have been someone else? Think again." The physician wiped his sweat, then suddenly looked at me. "I recognized the poison because it's called Yin Yang San. That's why I could prepare the antidote quickly. It acts fast. Once exposed, the symptoms appear within an hour. His lordship must have been poisoned during dinner." The vice director ordered an immediate investigation. The symptoms appeared within an hour, so the poisoning must have happened around dinner time. Yin Yang San. The two physicians from Huichen Pharmacy looked puzzled. Yin Yang San doesn't act that quickly. Could we be mistaken? A group went to collect all the food and drink Lin Jiaxian had consumed that day, both from my courtyard and from Wen Fei's. In the end, the two physicians found poison in the dishes from my meal. Oh my. So it was the second sister-in-law who poisoned his lordship. Wen Fei gasped, covering her mouth. My mother-in-law also said, "Su Lu Shuang, you are truly vicious." Wen Fei added, "My lord, today my sister-in-law suddenly decided to cook. She prepared all the food herself. Could it be that she resented his lordship for not loving her and poisoned him in revenge?" Under the watchful eyes of everyone, I remained calm. "Sister-in-law, the officer hasn't spoken yet. Why are you so quick to accuse me? If I were the poisoner, would I have invited the authorities to investigate?" The vice director looked at me thoughtfully. "I have already sent people to search your courtyard for poison." "Of course, we will search every courtyard in the manor." By now, it was just after dawn. The events at the Yongding Marquis Manor had already spread through the streets and alleys. The capital was in an uproar. Shortly after, Hong Ling was brought in. The officers had found Yin Yang San in her room. She knelt, trembling. I slapped her hard across the face. "You treacherous servant. You tried to poison his lordship. Your mother and brother's contracts are in my hands. How dare you betray me and try to frame me? They are on my estate. If you lie, you know what will happen to them." Hong Ling flinched, panic in her eyes. After being reborn, I had immediately sent someone to seize Hong Ling's mother and brother, just in case she tried to turn on me. "My lord, my sister-in-law is threatening Hong Ling," Wen Fei immediately said. I sneered. "Then I'll have Hong Ling's mother and brother brought to the manor. That way, it won't be a threat." Right. Hong Ling was my dowry maid. I held her contract and her family's. She had served me for years, so I had trusted her completely, entrusting her with my meals. I never thought she would be bought. Now, I could use her family. At least Hong Ling wouldn't side with the Marquis' household. Now that the evidence was overwhelming, Hong Ling knew she couldn't save herself. She could only tell the truth to save her family. Weeping, she said, "Miss, it was my greed. I took money from the old madam to poison you. The poison was meant for you. But somehow his lordship ended up drinking it." My mother-in-law and Wen Fei's expressions changed dramatically. Everyone was stunned. The poison wasn't meant for his lordship at all, it was meant for me. The culprit was the old madam herself. Everyone looked at my mother-in-law. Her face was grim as she glared at Hong Ling, as if blaming her for not hiding the poison better, utterly useless. I raised an eyebrow. In truth, Hong Ling had hidden the poison well. I had my people find it and put it under her bed, so the officers could find it quickly. The vice director asked, "Is what you say true?" Hong Ling nodded. "And it wasn't just once. I've been poisoning Miss since she married into the family. For 3 full years. The old madam gave the poison to the physician, who gave it to me. He said it wouldn't harm her, just prevent her from having children. Miss never noticed anything wrong. I don't know how his lordship ended up poisoned like this." She then burst into tears. The physician was trembling, his lips quivering. The vice director roared, "Explain. Why did his lordship become poisoned?" The physicians from Huichen Pharmacy had carefully examined the bird's nest soup. Because of the Baiji powder, Yin Yang San alone can cause infertility without noticeable symptoms. We were wondering why his lordship's symptoms were so severe. It didn't seem like Yin Yang San. After examining the food, we found the Baiji powder. Yin Yang San combined with Baiji creates a violent reaction, causing the person to collapse. If not treated in time, it can be fatal. Even if saved, the person will be infertile. Baiji. I feigned surprise. I put Baiji in the fish I cooked. What? Everyone was startled. I said, "Spicy fish is a family recipe from one of our old matrons. It requires many spices and medicinal ingredients. It's not only delicious but also strengthening. Baiji powder enhances the flavor and is supposed to promote longevity." I added some. The kitchen was busy, and the Baiji was ground into a powder. Perhaps some accidentally fell into the bird's nest soup. Jean Ju added, "Even if it didn't get into the soup, eating the bird's nest soup followed by the spicy fish could also cause poisoning." "It was an accident?" I asked. "And his lordship?" The physician shook his head. "It's too late. Too much time has passed. We can only save his life. He will be unable to have children in the future." I stood up abruptly and pointed at my mother-in-law. Lu Shuang asks herself, "Before I married into this family, I had never crossed my mother-in-law, never offended her, I hadn't even seen her face. Why did you poison me? Make me infertile?" "Mother-in-law, you called me a hen that doesn't lay every day. Said I was barren for 3 years. Now we know the truth, it was you who caused it. How dare you blame me?" I wept loudly. My mother-in-law was speechless. Everyone looked at me with sympathy. Even Wen Fei moved away from my mother-in-law, pretending not to know her, and said, "To think that the old madam would do such a thing. Like mother-in-law, like daughter-in-law. No wonder his lordship forced himself on me." Then, tearfully, she said to me, "Second sister-in-law, we are in the same boat. You were poisoned by them. I was forced by them." My mother-in-law was furious with Wen Fei, but she gritted her teeth and endured. Watching Wen Fei's feigned innocence, I was disgusted. She wanted to escape on her own. Dream on. I continued to cry. Why? Why marry me off and then prevent me from having children? Why force me to adopt some unknown child and make it my legitimate son? The vice director seized on the word. Adopt. I wiped my tears. Yes. They all took turns persuading me to adopt an orphan of unknown origin and make him my son. I couldn't understand it. If I truly couldn't have children, that would be one thing. But they poisoned me from the start to make me infertile, then used that as a reason to force me to adopt. And when I suggested adopting a child from the clan, they refused, insisting I adopt Lin Zhaoxian. I truly don't understand. A thoughtful look appeared on the vice director's face. I suddenly thought of something and looked at Wen Fei in shock. Wait, that child looks like you. I even heard him call you mother once. Wen Fei's expression changed. You're lying. Xianer has never called me mother. She had been careful in the household. Her son, Lin Zhaoxian, never dared to call her mother. Since I was just making it up, what could she do? 10 mouths couldn't clear her name. I understand now, I said, realization dawning. I didn't understand before. but now I see it all. With that, I put on a heartbroken expression. Madam, what do you understand? The two physicians asked. Jinju said, isn't it obvious? His lordship was having an affair with his widowed sister-in-law and fathered a child. To hide this shame, the household rushed to marry our young lady, then poisoned her to make her infertile. That gave them a reason to legitimize the illegitimate child. Otherwise, why poison the matriarch to make her infertile and force her to adopt a child? And not just any child, but a child of unknown origin instead of a clan member. Isn't that obvious? Jinju chattered on, speaking the truth like bullets from a gun. I wiped my tears inwardly, praising her for being the most capable maid I had. My mother-in-law and Wenfei's faces were ashen. Nonsense. How dare you, a lowly maid, spout such lies and slander the Marquis's household. Guards, slap her mouth. My mother-in-law, enraged, pointed at Jinju and shouted. Wenfei, also in tears, said, second sister-in-law, I never thought you could be so vicious, throwing mud on my name. I sneered, sister-in-law, you shouldn't try to lie your way out of this. Wenfei stared at me. I continued, even if Jinju is lying, what about you and his lordship being found together tonight? You admitted in front of everyone that you slept with him tonight, didn't you? Wenfei bit her lip. I was forced. His lordship was supposed to stay with me tonight. You knew that. Yet you came to my courtyard gate and lingered. You even sent a maid to lurk around. His lordship spoke with your maid and immediately left my courtyard to come to yours. That's how this whole situation unfolded. Let me ask you, did his lordship force you to come to my courtyard? Or did you force your maid to wait for him there? Wenfei stammered. You're twisting my words. Twisting your words. I continued. How many maids and matrons saw you on your way here? Your maid lingered outside my courtyard for a long time. There are plenty of witnesses. Would you like to confront them? Wenfei bit her lip. The vice director said, Madam, which maid is it? Bring her here. Jinju volunteered. I remember what she looks like. And she ran off to find her. Wenfei's frail body swayed. She looked at me with a mixture of shock and fear. She had wanted to get away cleanly, but my revelation about her son meant she couldn't. I continued my sarcastic remarks. Sister-in-law, if you hadn't schemed to lure his lordship away from me tonight, he wouldn't be in this state. Perhaps the poison would have been treated by now. Everyone nodded in agreement, looking at Wenfei with strange expressions. She opened her mouth, but no words came. My mother-in-law had been on her side, but at my words, her expression grew darker. She couldn't help but ask the physicians, how is my son's condition? The physician said, Old madam, his lordship's life is no longer in danger. He will recover and be as healthy as anyone else. However, he will likely never have children again. My mother-in-law slumped back into her chair, looking at Wenfei with blazing anger, gritting her teeth. You wretch, you've ruined my son. After discovering Wenfei's affair with Lin Jiaxian, my mother-in-law had despised her. In her heart, Lin Jiaxian was blameless. The fault was Wenfei's, but she had been forced to ally with Wenfei because of the child and Lin Jiaxian's protection. Now, Wenfei claimed Lin Jiaxian had forced her, and her delay in treating him had cost him his ability to have children. How could she not hate her? Old madam, I didn't mean to. As soon as his lordship showed symptoms, I called for the physician. If second sister-in-law hadn't barged in with her people, his lordship would have been fine already. Wenfei tried to shift the blame to me. I immediately responded, so you're saying this is all my fault? Sister-in-law. Wenfei bit her lip and said nothing. My mother-in-law stared at me as if she wanted to devour me. I smiled. That's not fair. If you really wanted to save his lordship, why didn't you tell me the truth the moment I arrived instead of pretending to be ill? I might resent you, but I know when human life is at stake, I would have treated his lordship first. You wanted to hide the truth, make your son mine, and keep scheming against me. That's why his lordship is like this. I don't have a son, Wenfei shouted, her composure finally cracking. She shook her head frantically and knelt before my mother-in-law. Old madam, don't listen to her. My mother-in-law slapped her, sending her to the floor. Wenfei still struggled. I don't have a son. I was forced by his lordship. I didn't poison anyone. I don't know anything. Just then, Jinju returned with Wenfei's senior maid, who entered trembling and knelt in the room. The people outside had been listening and knew roughly what was happening. The maid probably had an idea of the situation. Tell us, why did you go to my courtyard? Who sent you? Jean Ju asked. The maid looked at Wenfei in fear. Wenfei glared at her. Speak. The vice director slammed the table. One lie, and you'll face the consequences. The maid quickly said, It was the first madam. She sent me to Kongqing Yuan. To do what? To summon his lordship. Why? The maid hesitated, knowing the truth would eventually come out. She gritted her teeth. Because today is the first madam's birthday. His lordship had promised to have dinner with her at Hefeng Yuan, but second madam insisted on keeping him. The first madam was very displeased, so she went to summon his lordship herself and ordered me to wait outside Kongqing Yuan to guide him over. I said, you see, sister-in-law, you went to summon his lordship yourself. It seems the claim that he forced you is inaccurate, wouldn't you say? My mother-in-law immediately joined me in berating Wenfei. Wenfei, you wretch. You seduced my son and tried to blame him. You are truly vicious. I will have the family divorce you. Wenfei, who had just managed to stand, collapsed again. My mother-in-law eagerly said to the vice director, my lord, my son didn't force anyone. He is innocent. The vice director ignored her and asked the maid, did his lordship force his widowed sister-in-law? Under my mother-in-law's glare and everyone's watchful eyes, the maid flinched and said, no, they were in love. Jean Ju sneered. In love? For how long? The maid looked around anxiously. Since 4 years ago, she stammered. 4 years ago. With the maid's confession, everyone learned that Lin Jiaxian and Wenfei had gotten together just 2 months after the former heir's death. I sighed. 2 months. How impatient. I wonder, does his brother's spirit in heaven know about this? Wenfei flinched. The vice director asked, does Wenfei have a child? The maid hesitated. Suddenly, there was a commotion at the door. Wu Momo entered and said, Madam, the child has been brought. 2 maids ushered a boy of about 4 into the room. I said, my lord, this is the child they insist I adopt. His name is Lin Jiaxian. Wenfei, who had been on the floor, scrambled to her feet. What are you doing? Let go of Xianer. Lin Jiaxian was trembling in fear, his face looking around in terror. Take a look. Doesn't this child look like sister-in-law? Everyone looked closely and nodded. Wenfei rushed to Wu Momo's side and snatched the child, stroking his head. Don't be afraid. The child held her tightly. Wu Momo smiled. Lin Jiaxian, who is this woman to you? The child didn't answer, looking up at Wenfei in confusion. Wenfei gritted her teeth. At this point, she knew the truth couldn't be hidden. The vice director's gaze lingered on the child and Wenfei. He looked down at the maid. Does Wenfei have a child? The maid looked at Wenfei, then at the child. Knowing the truth would soon come out, she bit her lip and said, yes. The word stunned everyone. A widowed sister-in-law with a child, and very likely Lin Jiaxian's. The maid continued, his lordship and the first madam were together for 6 months before she became pregnant. As her belly grew, they had no choice but to confess to the old madam. Though furious, she decided to keep the child. She took the first madam to Nanshan Temple under the guise of prayer and self-cultivation, where she secretly gave birth. Later, they decided to find a suitable wife for his lordship, someone they could control. They chose the second madam, poisoned her to make her infertile, and forced her to adopt the child. That way, the child could become his lordship's legitimate son and inherit the marquisate without opposition from the clan. The maid had revealed everything. The truth was now clear. Lin Jiaxian grew more scared and tugged at Wenfei's sleeve. Mother, where is father? Wenfei closed her eyes. The outcome was sealed. My mother-in-law sank into a chair, sighing as if she had aged 10 years in an instant. She had been furious with Wenfei but had endured for the child's sake. Now, she couldn't hold back. She lunged at Wenfei, choking her. It's all your fault. You wretch. You've ruined my son. You've ruined this house. Everyone pulled her away. She looked at me and said, Lu Shuang, you heard everything. I had no choice. That woman seduced my son and got pregnant. I couldn't kill the Marquis's child. I had no other option. If I had any choice, would I, the old matriarch of a Marquis's household, nearing the end of my life, do such a sordid thing? Tears streamed down her face. I was unmoved. Old madam, You don't need to make excuses. You sacrificed me for the sake of your marquis's household. In the end, you've only hurt yourselves. My mother-in-law covered her face and wept. The sun had risen, chasing away the darkness and cold. I let out a long breath. Just then, Lin Jiaxian groaned and woke up. Seeing so many people crowded in the room, he asked, confused, "What's going on?" Everyone looked at him with complex expressions. I rushed over and slapped him hard across the face. It was a bright, crisp sound, a single slap spanning 2 lifetimes and over 10 years. All the bitterness and resentment welled up inside me. My eyes reddened, and tears streamed down my face. I wasn't pretending. I was crying from the depths of my heart. Su Lu Shuang, how dare you hit me? Lin Jiaxian was furious. He tried to sit up and hit back, but he was still weak from the poison. I jumped on him, pinning his head down, and beat him mercilessly. What are you all standing there for? Help me, Lin Jiaxian shouted, but no one in the room tried to stop me. Wen Fei and my mother-in-law were too ashamed to intervene, and everyone else looked on with sympathy. When I was exhausted, I let him go and strode out. Lin Jiaxian's face was swollen and bruised. A mess. My lord, take care of yourself, the vice-director said, giving him a meaningful look before leaving. The physicians shook their heads sadly. What do you mean? Lin Jiaxian was both angry and aggrieved. The physician said, my lord, you will never be able to have children. A desperate scream came from the room. After dawn, the events at the Yongding Marquis Manor spread like wildfire through the capital. The city was in an uproar. Everyone knew that Lin Jiaxian and Wen Fei had gotten together just 2 months after his brother's death and had an illegitimate child. They knew that they had tricked me into a marriage, poisoned me to make me infertile, and tried to pass the child off as mine. Their actions were heinous and even reached the emperor's ears. I returned to my family home. When my parents learned the truth, they were devastated and full of regret. My father wrote a memorial that night, begging the emperor to deal with them severely and to allow me to divorce Lin Jiaxian. At the same time, the enemies of the Yongding Marquis household came forward to denounce them for corruption, bribery, usury, and other crimes. The emperor was furious. He granted me the divorce. Due to the public outrage, the emperor not only allowed the divorce but also ordered the marquis's household to compensate me with a large amount of gold, silver, and property. I walked away with the majority of their wealth. The emperor revoked the Yongding Marquis's title. My mother-in-law took sole blame for the poisoning. Her title was stripped. She received 20 strokes, and was ordered to publicly apologize to me. She was old, and after the beating, she returned home and died. Lin Jiaxian was stripped of his official position, and his property was confiscated. He was not explicitly banned from serving again, but his reputation was ruined. No one would hire a man who had an affair with his widowed sister-in-law just 2 months after his brother's death and colluded with his mother to poison his wife. The news of his impotence spread far and wide, making him the laughingstock of the capital. He couldn't show his face anywhere and drowned his sorrows in drink. Wen Fei, for her lack of virtue, was seized by her enraged family and drowned in a pig cage. Even so, she was still reviled. Her son, Lin Jiaxian, was seen as an illegitimate child, unable to find a teacher or school. He grew up following his father's example, fighting cocks and racing dogs, eventually becoming a street thug. The marquis's household fell apart. Lin Jiaxian's family was shunned. They were expelled from the Lin clan. Father and son quickly fell into poverty. Soon, on a winter night after drinking, Lin Jiaxian and Lin Zhaoxian froze to death on the street. Hong Ling was beaten to death. I expelled her mother and brother. The physician was beaten and then imprisoned. Everyone got what they deserved. I returned to my family home with a cartload of gold and silver and treasures. My mother held me and wept. My daughter, don't be afraid. Your mother will support you for the rest of your life. A divorced daughter returning home was usually stigmatized. Fortunately, my case had caused such a stir and had the emperor's approval, so the public wasn't too harsh. Still, no one dared to marry me again. After 2 lifetimes, I had no desire to remarry anyway. Being a matriarch, though seemingly glorious, was filled with thankless toil. It was better to live my own life. I didn't adopt any more children either. I had had enough of raising ungrateful brats. I lived with Wu Momo and Jin Ju, treating them as sisters. They had been tested in my past life. They were sincere, loyal, and of good character. The poison in my body was gradually expelled with the help of the physicians from Huichun Pharmacy. I studied medicine with them. They felt sorry for me and taught me everything they knew. Without the distractions of marriage, childbirth, family, and personal relationships, I was able to focus on my studies. Later, I became a renowned female physician and compiled a medical text that was passed down through the ages. After listening to this story, what are your thoughts? You are welcome to share your feelings in the comments section. We look forward to hearing your voice.